Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Summer Hikaru Died, Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, let's start off with Yoshiki and Hikaru's side of things. This is taking place the next day after the Matsuda situation. We find out basically from one of the students at school, she died by basically stuffing her own hand into her mouth. So I wonder, did he grab her hand? Cause we saw little bits of that later on, Hikaru's true form or whatever underneath him. I think that's supposed to be him grabbing Yoshiki's hand, but maybe that's how he ended up killing her, because it looks like they're saying it's basically being labeled as a suicide. So that's interesting, because we never got to see how Hikaru potentially killed her. But the whole thing does resonate, that the moment they're like, oh my god, it's so eerie what happened. There's been a lot of eerie things lately. And then that, because it's oh, maybe that old woman saw something she shouldn't have, and immediately Yoshiki turns and looks to Hikaru. It's well, that's the same lady who was freaking out because she most likely saw what's really inside of Hikaru. He was acting a little weird after the encounter, so he knows there's something there. But it's that thing of he wants to ask questions, and he kind of does. He did the same thing last episode, but it's a thing of, I'm afraid to ask too many questions because I don't want to piss this thing off and kill it. I mean, not kill it, for it to kill me, but also I don't want to disrupt this normal life. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the last shot of the episode, it almost feels like that's what that's kind of implying, that metaphor with that thing. I don't know what that. It's a bug that's basically leaving its shell behind. It's kind of leaving, but there's the whole thing of it ends up falling along with its shell, and then they're getting devoured by ants. But then the episode ends with it time rewinding and it going back into its shell, and then it splits open and there's the thing inside of Hikaru. It's almost like this larger metaphor of don't ask, don't tell, of as long as I don't ask too many questions, I can keep pretending, that this is just Hikaru. So it's almost like things haven't changed. We could go back to the way things were, at least pretend how things were. But then the ending being no, but it's still the underlining thing of, it's still here. No matter how much you want to pretend, how much you want to go back and pretend like everything is what it was. You could also say the actual ending, for the, I guess what's going to be the anime's ending going forward is that, where it's hey, this is Hikaru and Yoshiki going to the beach and stuff. I think it's interesting, it's live action footage with their character models animated on top of it. It's not done in was it the last ending of Mob Psycho, where that's live action, but then they've animated on top of it. This isn't that. It's just literally these characters were drawn on top of live action footage. So I thought that was so interesting. But that's Yoshiki and the real Hikaru, and the last shot of it is the thing inside of Hikaru, and showing how different things are. No matter how much you want to recapture what was before, that nothing will ever be the same, no matter how much you want it, how much you want to pretend that it is. So there's really a lot of beautiful layers to that, tragic layers really on top of all of it. But either way, so that's all going back to the plot of itself. You have that group of friends. What is it? It's that one dude, there's Yuki, and then there's Asako. And the guy's because there's construction on the way, the tunnel I take to go home, I end up having to go through the forest. And he's it's creepy and it's scary. So he kind of wants people to come along with him. So he's volunteering everyone to come along. Because it's interesting, because the one that really pushes for it is Asako, because she's oh, that sounds so interesting, let's go. And then Hikaru invites himself, and they're really? They're yo, after everything that went, I mean, I think they're talking around it oh, didn't you pass out after watching a horror movie? He's yeah, but that's fine. I'm not like that anymore, which is funny and layered. But I think there's also the element of, I think they were probably also well, considering you went missing up in the mountains for a week a while back, wouldn't you kind of be a little reluctant to do? But he's all right, Hikaru's down. And then Asako has this side comment where she's it should be fine as long as we're together. You're what the hell? Because she kind of looked at Hikaru last episode. I was what's up with her? So when they go check out the place, I thought they would do something tricky with it, but it seems that's not the case, where they go investigate the forest. I also love that little thing, because they did it last episode of Hikaru, where and this time, like that guy's one freaking out. He's like, I'm scared. But then when you zoom out from the scene, it's literally like a little square, like backdrop of like that, when he's freaking out and stuff, like you see it zoomed in, but when you pull it out, you just see the square. And I'm like, that's such an interesting artistic choice. But when it kind of glitches a little bit, like it just like cuts, like you could see it's a jump cut. But I'm like, wait, what? Because I noticed that before and I rewound it a little bit. I was like, is that? And then when he steps out and he's like, what? And they're like, oh, everything's normal. I was freaking out because I was like, wait. Because at first I thought they were kind of looping this. Like, oh, we thought we went into it, but we came out the other side being like, wait, we're in the exact same spot. That's what I thought it was. But maybe it's like, it is meant to be that. But maybe it's, I don't know. Because I guess the indication is like, no, they just got to the other side of it. And he's like, oh. I think it's meant to freak you out thinking something did happen. But he's like, no, nothing happened. I freaked out for nothing. So they go back through the forest. But Hikaru sees something out of a corner. He's like, what's that zigzag? And it turns out to be something like a long-necked creature just going back and forth with his head. And it saw Yoshiki, and Yoshiki saw it. And Hikaru's like, oh boy, you looked at it. No, that's not good. He's like, come here and I'll protect you from it. And then just like we cut from like, then all of a sudden like we crazy imagery. And then all of a sudden Hikaru's nose is bleeding. And he tells Yoshiki like, oh yeah, I ate the thing. He's like, that thing was going to latch onto you. Like, you do not need to look at those things. The moment you do, that thing's lonely, so it's going to latch onto you. And the ironic thing is Hikaru's like, I'm the only one that gets to latch onto you. So if anything like that comes up, don't look at it. But if you see it, tell me immediately and I'll gobble it up. Which I think is so interesting. But it's like, yeah, they can't be with you. They can't latch onto you because I'm already latched onto your mind to kind of keep possession of. So that's interesting. It's almost like, in a twisted way, you can almost be like, if you want to look at it from a very cynical standpoint, you'd be like, oh, like, he's lonely, so it's like, you're kind of his pet. But from its perspective, it's like, no, you're my friend. You treat me like a friend, and I'm your friend. But that's always the balancing act of, it's like you're balancing on the edge of a knife, where it's like, I don't want to screw up and piss this thing off. Because it literally said, yo, if you expose me to anyone, I will kill you. But Yoshiki's been very like, hey, I'm pretending you're Hikaru. I'm treating you like Hikaru because it's easier that way. Not for your sake. I'm doing it for my sake, and not even partially for my own safety, but also just I'm deluding myself into believing you're still my friend. Just because I can't accept a world where Hikaru's actually gone. What I thought was interesting too is Asako like freaked out too, and she grabs Yuki and they run. But then later on, Asako's like, that's weird. The feeling I got from the forest, she's like, it's gone. Like maybe whatever was there clashed with it, and then Hikaru's staring at her. You're like, interesting. So she must have like, there must be like some kind of spirit medium. Like she's attuned to this to some degree. Like she's probably feeling it to a small degree from Hikaru, but like, it's probably like such a deep level sixth sense that she doesn't have full control over it. Unlike the lady, what's her name? Like it's like R-I-E. So I don't know if you pronounce that like Ri or Ray, but that woman is a lot. She's at least a little bit more attuned than Asako. I think Asako is, it's still so subconscious. It's a very like not. It's still in its infancy. Her like sixth sense. So I don't think she can fully sense the thing in Hikaru, but I think sometimes she can. But like I think she's only getting like a little flavor of it because she's not paying attention to Hikaru. She's more focused on the forest. Like, oh, because I think because when they talk about it, Hikaru was like, oh yeah, like it sounded like someone might have misfired the gun and it went off. And she's like, is that what they heard? Because she heard the clashing and she probably heard it as like, yo, it sounds like something getting devoured. So she did sound like she heard, I think she felt and kind of heard that thing and the thing inside of Hikaru. So he's kind of like, does she know? But she doesn't. So I'll leave her alone because we're kind of friends and I don't want to hurt anyone that's friends with Yoshiki. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. But then there's a weird scene later where Yoshiki's like, yo, I wanna see how you ate that thing. He's like, cool. And he starts unbuttoning his shirt, and you can tell it makes Yoshiki feel weird because he's feeling all kinds of things that he's trying to bury. And it's like, well, it's a combination of, but no, you're my friend Hikaru, so I can't think of you that way, even though I thought of you that way, but I shouldn't think of you that way because you're my friend, But also, like, you're a guy and I'm a guy, so that's, layers to it. But also now it's the extra layer of, but you're not Hikaru. You're something else pretending to be Hikaru, and now my feelings for Hikaru are kind of mumbled up and jumbled with this complicated situation. But yeah, like it has a cut in its stomach, and it tells Yoshiki like, "Yo, reach in," and he does, and it's like a very like metaphorically erotic scene because you're like, "Hey, yo." Because he's like reaching, and he's like, no, go in there, get a little deeper. Also reach up, and that's so like unnerving when he's reaching up and the split's getting higher up until his chin. But then he's just like, yeah, like kind of grabbing. He's just like, oh yeah, that's it, that's a spot. He's like, that feels good. He's like, yeah, it's like getting a really good pat. I'm like, hey, yo, that doesn't seem like a. I mean, is that what the young folk are calling it these days? A good head pat? I'm like, hey, yo, you swear he just like. I don't know, man. You swear you hit the prostate or something. You hit your G-spot, homie. I mean, that's why I'm like, that felt like it's meant to be like a metaphor for that. But once again, and you know that's got to make Hikaru, not really Hikaru, but more Yoshiki feel weird. And then especially when Hikaru messes with him a little, grabs his arm and pulls him a little deeper. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, did that scare you? He's just almost pissed because he's like, don't do that. Because it's like, once again, it kind of breaks the illusion. But even he was like, yo, it's kind of warm. And like, it kind of, no, because like, I think Yoshiki was like, no, Hikaru was like, I've never felt anything living inside of me. Because I think anything he's ever gobbled up has probably been not human or something that's already dead. But also, he's, you know, it's like, once again, it's like sexual, but also like not even just sexual, but just like intimate. And it's like interesting, like this metaphorical intimacy in that moment. And how do they play it off? It's just kind of like a ha ha ha. They laugh it all off, but it's like there's a lot of complicated feelings in that scene alone, and it's all piling up. It's interesting too because we get this scene with a young Hikaru and his dad, which is interesting considering like this thing has access to all of Hikaru's memories. I don't know if it's just kind of like, is that thing thinking about it in this moment, or that's just us getting a little insight into the Endo family, because it's like, yo, his dad's like, if you find a girl that you really like, you need to marry her as soon as possible. And it's like the reason, well, once again, kind of laying that on too, of just like, oh, girl, no girlfriend, no wife, yada yada, really leaning into that. But also, it's because they made Unaki will come down and steal her, and it's like, well, it won't mess with our family, so that's why you need to immediately marry someone that you like, because you'll always be able to protect them. Like, it won't touch anyone that's part of our family. But it's like, even Hikaru was like, but why does it do that? And it's like, because it's lonely. It seems like all these entities are lonely. Like, who knows, like, what they were. Were they humans at one point in time and became, like, yokai or evil spirits? Or some people were kind of warning of this thing inside of, I don't know if these are people who are more familiar with the manga, or whether that was just, like, their assertion, assuming this thing's, like, an alien. It could easily be a thing of, it is an alien, but it's been here so long, it probably gets wrapped up in the evil spirit yokai type of entity type of situation. But that is really fascinating, because I'm like, it's supposed to, so once again, there's multiple things that are scattered around here that are lonely and stuff. But then the question becomes like, is this all becoming more apparent because that thing that's inside Hikaru has been in the village for like 6 months? It's like you've been slowly like leaking out your energy unintentionally, drawing other supernatural things a lot closer to town, you know? Because who knows like how often that really happened? Because even later on that Ray, however you pronounce your name, was kind of like, yeah, I sense that feeling from like the mountains, this eerie feeling. And she's like, lately for a while, like it's been gone. Well, we know where it went. It's in Hikaru. It's like out and about in town. And like I said, she's like, she kind of like, I don't think she fully equates what was in the mountains, what's in Hikaru, but she knows like what's in Hikaru isn't natural. In fact, it, you know, Yoshiki should be a little scared. We'll get to that later. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But there was also this scene where like Hikaru looks at Yoshiki and he's almost like, should I take him? He's like, no, I shouldn't take him. He's going to stay by my side regardless. I'll basically kind of, he's like, it's almost this thing of, the thing inside Hikaru is like, should I just go ahead and gobble him up so that he stays a part of me forever, stays with me forever? But it's like, no, I don't need to do that. He's willingly choosing to, no, despite my constitution, deciding to stay by me, so I don't have to worry about it. I'll keep him to myself forever. But then we see like that yellow glow. I'm like, that's supposed to be like kind of his ki or chi, or more so specifically like his soul, it seemed like. So that's fascinating, kind of getting insight from that thing's thinking that we're not privy to. Like, we're privy to Yoshiki's thoughts, but even then, we're not fully in his head. So this is one of the few times where we've been inside this thing's head and kind of seeing how it's viewing Yoshiki, which is a very positive light, which benefits him and, a lot of people around him. Another part of this is we have 3 people from the village leading, what's his name, Tanaka. He arrives in town to investigate Matsura's place. And they talk a little bit about it, where it's like, she saw something as a child. She specifically saw, what was his name again? Nosuke? The thing that's supposed to be inside of Hikaru. Apparently she saw it at a very young age and it freaked her out. But saying for the most part, she was a pretty normal person up until like her daughter disappeared a while back. And you're like, interesting. And so she kind of lived kind of like, I think, like the way she has. Since I don't know if she's able to attribute what happened to her daughter with what she saw at a young age. Who knows? But the main guy, his name's Takeda, like his dad is freaked out, being like, yo, I'm on a chopping block next. And then Tanaka laughs and he's like, yeah, that makes sense. Because it seems like there was a company or whatever that was coming in to do, I don't know if it's like they were going to renovate or do something in that mountainous area where Hikaru went missing and where this thing inhabited his body. It seems like maybe they were going to do something, but Tanaka's company stopped them because they're like, yo, there's shit up there you don't want to be messing with, because like they go around, they're screwing around up there. They're going to unleash something they don't want to do. They're going to bring a lot of trouble your way. So, but maybe they were already in a process before Tanaka's group could step in, and that's why the thing inside Hikaru was able to kind of slip in. I mean, once again, we don't fully know why Hikaru was up there, because they talk about it last episode and this episode, like some kind of ritual didn't work. So maybe it's like stuff did start and they did a ritual to try and make it so that whatever's up there doesn't get released or find its way down, but it failed, and here we are. They even went through the bag that Hikaru had with him up there, and inside of it, it's like, oh, like, I guess it's supposed to be the equivalency of like a shrunken head, where it's like, oh, this used to be someone's head, and they're like, oh, why would he have that? He's like, this thing is meant to battle against, like, he's like, it would keep evil spirits away. So whoever has this, it'll probably keep most spirits, at bay. But the fact is, he's like, it isn't enough to deal with whatever came down from that mountain. So it didn't protect Hikaru from that thing. Like, I guess showcasing it's so powerful compared to anything else that wouldn't have done anything. So, and now Tanaka's the one to say like, yo, that thing's down here hiding out amongst you. So he wants to continue investigating more. I think it's interesting, like his tea, that there's kind of, they make a point to zoom in on it like twice. You get a slight zoom and you get an extra zoom in, where it's like the figure inside of that T. I'm like, I swear we've seen that symbol or like something of that ilk. Maybe I'm full of shit, but I swear there was an earlier part in the episode we saw something similar to that. Like, it feels like that it's too intentional, that symbol, and maybe Tanaka's reading something from it, or it feels like there's something there and they make too much of an emphasis on it. And maybe, like I said, it feels like there's something earlier in the episode that resembles that, but I couldn't put my finger on it when I was staring at it. I'm like, I felt stupid. It feels like I don't know if that's something where you're like, hey, keep that in mind for later. Not necessarily like it was something earlier in the episode. It could have been, and I just feel stupid because I feel like it seemed familiar, but I can't remember what it was. Then we had that situation where Yoshiki's at the like grocery store or whatever, and the cashier lady is just talking and talking and talk. It's like, has Yoshiki said a single thing to you? She's like, oh, what about your sister? This and that. What about you're grown? Making other references too about like, oh yeah, your parents are fighting. If you need anyone to talk to, I'm here, type of thing. I'm like, lady, take a breath. It's like you were talking the entire time and you saw it from different angles. You even saw it from the security footage angle, which is interesting. 640, 48, it's 480p. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty low quality camera. That's what I'm like. I was about to say, like, what year does it take place? And like, oh, we definitively know it takes place in 2020. So, no, 2021, right? I'm blanking, but yeah. So I was like, oh, but I mean, places like that will probably, just for the sake of keeping costs low, is you're going to cheap out a little bit. I mean, you had the camera, so that's that, but I just thought it's kind of interesting, like specifically letting you know, like, oh, that is not a high def camera. It's a pretty low quality camera. But either way, Yoshi's about to leave, and then he runs into that lady, once again, Ria or Ray, and she's like, yo, you need to be careful of that thing. You don't want to get mixed. And he was like, what does that mean? She's like, it's hard to say and really explain and put in words, but basically, like, you spend too much time with that thing, and you end up becoming less human. And I guess, like, you don't want a little bit of whatever it is to kind of mix into you a little bit and make you not human. And she's just kind of like, she's like, you probably have your reasons, like, that that's not like human fully, but you must have your reasons. And she's like, I'm not gonna kind of argue with that, but it's like, whenever you're really ready to talk, you can call me. Like, she exchanged contact info with him, and it's just like, what does Hikaru do with that? I mean, not Hikaru, sorry, Yoshiki do with that? And it's like, he kind of doesn't want to do anything, because it's like, I don't want to be in a position where someone can tell me how to get rid of you, because I don't want to get rid of you, but I'm also scared and confused, and I miss my friend who might have been more than a friend to me. Definitely had feelings for you more than a friend, but it's like, but I don't want to accept a world where you're not there, so I'll put up with this. But even she's like, you can't keep up with this forever. You are literally like suffocating from like this thing, and you're trying to pretend like everything's okay, and it's not. And you're just like, it's going to be the death of you in some shape or form. It's too much for any person to bear the weight of all of that secret, and just how heavy that sadness is. And I mean, oh, you've had 6 months to process it. I mean, you really haven't. You've had like a day and a half, because you've noticed things were odd. It's not until last episode, which was maybe a day or two ago, for you to be like, hey, you're not Hikaru, are you? And then to be like, oh, yo, I thought I was speaking weird, I thought it was off. Nah, you really aren't Hikaru. And just that, you've only had like a day or two to properly process it. But even then, you're not properly processing it. You're just kind of like, that's Hikaru. What's there to... But even then, you still have moments where you acknowledge it's not Hikaru. But, so the clashing of reality and this fantasy that you kind of have, it's like, it's not compatible. It's inconsistent, and the clashing is going to be your undoing. Like, I mean, how do you live like that? You're already breaking down a bit. You are going to have a complete and utter meltdown given enough time. So it's like, it's going to be so interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all this, because he's also completely unaware. Like, yo, there's a dude in town who's aware of the thing that's in Hikaru. It just doesn't know where, and it can use this hamster it has. They kind of at least point it in the right direction. That is, fortunately, like, if he's not, it seems like he's decent enough at hiding himself. Yoshiki spends enough time with Hikaru that it's like he picked up on like him acting different. No one else has really done that, but he's already invested in Hikaru. Tanaka is, because it's like, well, we know he knows that Hikaru went up to the mountains. He also had that thing that kind of protects against spirits. So it's like, he's probably going to have some questions soon, like, especially considering, like, well, we know that thing came down, who also came down from like the mountainous area, him. So a lot of questions, a lot of interesting developments. I'm curious to see where all this takes us next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.